I know some things. So just to let everybody know, I have to let everyone know we are recording this. We're going to do kind of a soft start here. And our panelists have never met each other. So we'll just start by saying, just introduce yourselves to each other and say what you're doing. And then we'll get rolling in a more formal way here as people start to get into the seminar. So,
okay. So my name is Emad. I live in Toronto, Canada. So I am a blockchain developer. I'm actually a CTO in a company. I'm a co-founder of Meta Networks, which is a blockchain-based digital identity for blockchain company.
Nice.
Okay. Devin, go ahead. Just say hello.
Hey, my name's Devin. I work at Suite. It's a blockchain agnostic NFT platform. I am the principal blockchain engineer there. Not sure if I just said that, but I write all the smart contracts and do some other cool stuff.
And I'm Steve. I work on a liquid staking protocol called Alluvial. I write the smart contracts and I write some centralized services to interact with those smart contracts and Go.
Nice, thank you. Okay, so we'll get rolling here. There will be people who will be joining a little bit later, and that's okay. So first things first is let everybody again know that I am recording. Just a couple of things for housekeeping wise. If you have questions, in the bottom of Zoom, you will see a Q&A. You can drop them there, or you can just stick them in chat. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So I'm going to share my screen here. And by way of introduction here, this particular seminar is a direct result of one of the first seminars that we had when BloomTech introduced our Web3 development course, where people specifically wanted two things. They wanted to talk to a recruiter, and if you missed that one, you can go back in the archives and get it. I will drop a link to trueup.io. It's a friend of mine named Amit Taylor. Amit has done an incredible job of automating all the jobs that are in tech, not just Web3. So there's some data science jobs, there's some full stack engineer jobs, there's web jobs, there's all sorts of cool stuff. But go there. His technology is really, really cool. So when we met with Amit, and then when we were we just did an introduction to what the course was. We had a lot of really, really good ideas that got generated out of that, and they wanted to meet people who do this for a living. So the panelists that we have here, we have three really good people here who have decided to take an hour out of their real busy days. They all have some jobs, maybe they overlap a little. And then in full disclosure, I will say that one of our presenters is also helped me, this is me, also helped develop one of our sprints. So that's our first presenter. So we want this to be kind of informal. We just really, really want to have some good interaction. So I've asked each person to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what they do, and the rest of it will be open for discussion. So Emad, I'm going to control the screen for you, so you don't have to. So if you just want me to do next, let me know next. If you're going too slow, I will next for you as kind of a gentle nudge. So go ahead, Ma. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Emad Mohammed. I'm a blockchain developer and CTO at Meta Networks. So what we do at Meta Networks is we are currently working on the development of platform for the first of the kind decentralized file hosting, sharing, and authentication integrated with the Meta Network blockchain and the biometric-based wallet for Web3 identification. The wallet is aiming for identifying every person, organization identity by integrating INFT, which is identification NFT, with the public key of the wallet and extending services across metaverse platforms for identification. The network will be the first of kind globally that covers the gap between the real world and the Web3 and will allow the credential utilization among the metaverse and Web3 by personal and official organizations. Our system helps generate NFTs for organization and integrate them with the documents and then issue them for users who are eligible for it. Like for the universities issuing certificates to their students, So that's like integration with the NFTs so that they can track those documents on the blockchain. So it is known that who actually received what document and whether it's authentic or not. So in terms of that, so that is what currently our product and goal is at this company. So yes, so what is a day like for a Web3 developer? There's a lots of coding, lots of errors and bug fixing, keeping up with the fast changing technology, learning about Ethereum, Polkadot, Cosmos. It's a lot of hashing and encryption involved in the development, and developing like tokens and NFTs. And also the platforms are quite in process right now. There can be a lot of issues when developing because there's not still a stability in terms of releases and in terms of software development. So yes, that is like a day in the web. A lot of issues every day. Okay. So any questions?
We're actually going to hold the questions to the end. So we're getting some questions in the Q&A. So what I want to do is give people like a broad idea of what everybody's doing, and they'll answer the questions. Up next, go. Devin, can you see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Sweet.
This is just your intro. We have your slides right behind us.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute.
I thought it'd be a lot more fun just to like randomize the slides here. So we'll just let people read this, and here's your presentation.
All right. So what Sweet does as a company is we are an NFT platform. There's also an application that you can download on your phone. And you can purchase NFTs with you can do it with Apple Pay, you can do it with a card. And we hold a custodial wallet for you just to make it easier to go ahead and purchase NFTs. I've had people tell me their mom was able to buy one on the platform, or which, people get their first NFTs there. So we work with brands mainly. Some of them I'm sure you've heard of, Macy's, Old Navy, or some. Here's a bunch more. We've also expanded into working on a metaverse. There are NFT programs, and if you sign up for the app, you get 1 free NFT every week, and you get 2 for signing up. So we try to connect brands to Web3, and in doing so, we want to add some utility and value to the NFTs that they distribute. We're looking to up engagement for Web2 brands. Of course, revenue, customer loyalty. We're able to provide analytics and data. And overall, though, the experience part of the slide is the most important part. We want consumers to come to the platform to connect with their favorite brands or sports teams, and purchase NFTs that are valuable to them. So what I do, I have a very small amount of meetings, which I like, but that's mainly just to kind of walk through plans for the next few weeks for sprints, of course, check-ins, some demos sometimes, so I can demonstrate maybe a script I've written for a contract or explain contract functionality, kickoffs and syncs, which is when I get with management and we discuss like the outline for an in-depth project, whether that's for a client or an internal project. And of course, contracts, I write a lot of contracts. I test them with normal testing tools that most people in this room have learned via BloomTech. And I oftentimes run JavaScript and Python scripts through the contracts to find different use cases. So at Sweet, we have integrated Tezos, Polygon, Ethereum, and we're getting more into a few other chains that I'm sure that will be public knowledge soon.
Thank you. So Steve, this is just yours, your screen here. You can go ahead and talk about anything that you want. Take your time and go ahead.
Totally. Yeah, I'm jealous of everyone else's, pretty slides, but I'll try to do as good a job. I'm Steve. I work on a liquid staking protocol, Alluvial. And what that means, if you're familiar with like Lido, it's very similar. The idea is that there are people that want to stake, but they don't want to run their own node, which requires, like 32 ETH on Ethereum or similar, capital requirements on other blockchains. So our protocol will let you send in some crypto to a smart contract, and the smart contract will hand it to stakers for you. And the stakers will then pass the rewards back to you through the contract. So you get the benefits of staking, but you don't need to meet this minimum capital requirement. You don't have to run your own node, and you can enter and exit the position at any time. There's no unbonding periods. So I'm the lead engineer on this, which means I write the smart contracts as well as writing services that let people interact with this liquid protocol easily. So I really like Devin's sort of chart of how she spends her time. So I'll attempt to recreate that. My time has kind of had two major phases where we first had a very smart contract heavy phase for probably the first 4 months of the project. And at that time, we gathered requirements for like, okay, what do people, what is the actual financial experience we're trying to achieve? What kinds of capital do people have, and what kinds of tokens do we want to give them back? So I would say probably like 20 to 30% of my time was spent talking to the actual investors. So this means talking to crypto hedge funds. This means talking to custodians, like, big exchanges that serve those funds, and just asking them, like, what are your financial requirements here? You own ETH, like, are you okay with like wrapping it and then sending it? Like, are you comfortable with like receiving back an ERC20 token? Like, just trying to get the requirements around like what this contract will do. And then it was probably like another like 40% of my time was actually implementing the solidity, right? And using like debugging tools along the way to make that easier. And then the last 40% was testing. So I use Foundry. We happened to start this project pretty much right when Foundry was getting off the ground. So we kind of switched immediately to that, and I've really enjoyed that experience. And also a lot of, just like debugging testnet transactions using Cast, which is a Foundry tool. So, replaying the transactions, trying to see what revert messages we got, trying to decode the inputs, which is a nice segue into the second life of this project, which is building the centralized services. So you'll note that Alluvial is an institutional liquid staking protocol. And so that is its main difference from Lido. Lido is completely permissionless. Anyone can show up and stake. Anyone can show up and serve as a node. Alluvial is neat because the pool of stakers and the pool of validators are KYC'd. And so this enables people to participate that normally cannot. There are big companies that are not legally able to participate in Lido who can participate in Alluvial. However, for these companies to make use of it, we need to provide some centralized services that let them, go through a KYC process that lets us manage, like the status of a given validator or a staker, understanding whether they're approved by an exchange, for example. So we have REST APIs written in Go that interact with these contracts. And I would say probably like at this point, 60–70% of my time is writing Go. And the remaining amount of that time is debugging transactions. So this is now I'm using Cast really heavily. I'm trying to understand like what were the actual parameters that my API sent, like you'll get really weird errors where like, oh, like I just didn't do like the bytes encoding properly. So getting into like the RLP, which is how Ethereum encodes transactions on chain, and like the different like offsets of the bytes. So I've learned a lot doing that, which has been fun. I guess one thing I'll add as well is that in this second phase, we've been under an audit from a well-known auditing firm, and we are now working through their feedback. So I've been spending my time, diving deep on like, the different bugs that these auditors are like pointing us to and saying like, hey, you might be vulnerable to this, you might be vulnerable to that. So that spends a lot of that time just looks like reading and trying to understand whether that bug is really there or not, and explaining my code to other people. So that's been very fun, and it's very collaborative, which I've enjoyed. So yeah, that's kind of what my life looks like right now.
Cool. So thanks for the great introductions. There's really not a lot left in the slideshow. So we're going to move quickly over to the questions, but one thing I will say that several people have put into either chat, thank you so much, or into the questions, is that you guys are all professionals. You guys have all been doing this for a long time. That's why we asked you to come here. There are a lot of people who are attending this who probably don't have as facile as a handle on the vocabulary that you do. So Steve, KYC, the first time you said that, I honestly thought you said KFC, and I go, it's dinner time for me and I'm hungry. So let's, could you just do the KYC thing to clear that up? And then as you go along, I probably, if I do this, if you see me do this, just that means, hey, explain yourself a little clearer. So do KYC, and then I think we'll jump into questions.
Yes, my mistake. KYC stands for know your customer. People use it as an adjective and a noun and a verb. The way I'm using it is that when you go through a sign up form on like a traditional fintech, like Bank of America's website, you'll be asked to supply your name, your social security number, some identification documents. And that's because Bank of America is legally obligated to collect that info and report it to the government. There are regulated entities that interact with crypto, like big exchanges, that also have that same obligation. And if they wanted to help you stake in Lido, it would be illegal for them to do that because they would be taking your money, which is KYC'd, and giving it to a validator who is completely unknown to them. Lido doesn't, it's a smart contract. There's no way to collect any KYC. So what we're building is a combination of a protocol, like a smart contract that doesn't have KYC, and a centralized service that does have KYC. And this centralized service has the authority to add or remove people from participation in the smart contract. So that's what's unique about us, is that like everyone involved in this ecosystem has undergone some KYC, and therefore entities, like big crypto exchanges are allowed to participate in it and then pass on staking rewards to someone like their end customer.
Thank you, kind sir. And so for people who are participating in this, drop it in chat if you hear a term that you're not sure what the definition is, if you're not sure what it means, or if you just maybe misheard it like KFC that I just did. Drop that in chat. That's the easiest way for me to see it. And then we'll let all the presenters know. So presenters, you don't have to look at the chat or look at the Q&A. I'll do that for you. So let's do Q&A here. So what we'll do is I'll just throw out the question, and anybody who wants to respond to it, please do. I may direct questions to certain people because I know a little bit about what you guys do, what y'all do. But I think this one is a good open one for all discussion. So this one, the first question we got was, how do you feel about someone with very minimal web development or coding experience trying to break into Web3? Would it be best to learn a programming language to become a web developer first? Or can someone strictly just become a Web3 developer from scratch? So before we get there, I just, our program, the BloomTech Web3 program assumes you have some coding experience already. If you're not sure, we just reach out to us, reach out to me or to Dante. Dante, if you could put your contact information in chat, that'd be helpful. We have talked to some individuals who are like extremely bright, know what they're doing, and thank you, Dante. We made the decision that, yeah, you could probably do this. If you've not done any kind of coding before, this course goes very fast. So question open for forum. Emad, let's ask you first.
Okay.
What do you think? What kind of experience do you need in order to be successful like this as you are?
For Web3 developer, I think there are a few aspects of it. First, I would say front end, which is kind of like if you are a Web2 developer and React, for instance. So React is kind of the development platform that you can easily, if you know it, you can just directly use it in Web3 as well, because it provides integrations with like Web3 wallets, Web3 blockchains. So it makes it easy to interact with the smart contracts. So I think to start, to start in this space, you definitely need a bit of idea about JavaScript and React to have an idea of how the front end works with the back end. So I think, yeah, for Web2 developer, it is kind of like, if you know these kind of technology, you're like already 50% there.
Okay. Anybody else care to weigh in on this?
Sorry?
Yeah, thank you for your answer. Devin,
Thank you.
what do you think?
So the way this question is asked, I read it as well. I think that Bobby, the person wants to know that if they are, if this, should they learn a programming language first? And I would think that, as a Web3 developer, you know, I don't just get to use like Solidity or Lingo or anything strictly, because I also need to test my contracts. So JavaScript and Python are sort of fundamental, to kind of piggyback off of what Emad just said. But I would recommend, before just like going in and getting attempting a development career, to learn either a programming language first. It doesn't necessarily have to be JavaScript or Python, but if you want to be a Web3 developer, that would be like the fundamental knowledge, and then jump into something like Solidity or Rust following that.
Okay, there's a question in the chat. What is Lingo? Steve, before I ask you for your feelings about jumping into Web3. So somebody can define Lingo for us first, and then Steve, go ahead and talk about what you think.
Like Tezos's programming language.
Well, you're a little soft there.
Tezos's programming language.
Okay.
Their smart contract language.
Okay. Steve, do you want to comment on what it takes to become a Web3 engineer? Can you just jump into it, or what kind of background do you need? Then there'll be a follow-up question for you too, Steve. So go ahead.
Okay. I think the others have kind of hit the main points. Every Web3 application has the same front-end requirements as Web2 applications. So if you want to really be part of like a full end-to-end blockchain application, then it would be great to have the same front-end skills that you need in Web2 for Web3. So my stack is currently React and TypeScript. I'm sure a lot of people have learned those skills. And then, yeah, for smart contract programming, I do think you can kind of do that from scratch. It helps to have some backend experience. It also helps to have practice writing tests. Smart contract testing is like a huge part of delivering good smart contracts, because people, you know, are putting their money into those contracts, right? So they need to be extremely well vetted, and testing is how you really give your users assurance. And it helps prepare you for audit, because auditors will be, you know, calling out places that you're not testing, and won't really pass you unless you have really solid testing. So that would be the main piece of experience I would advise on getting. Write some backend code and write a lot of tests for that backend code.
So keeping with the theme here of Web 2 and Web 3, somebody who's interested in finding out, you know, your personal career changes. So how did you decide to go from whatever you were doing before? So maybe like a sentence of what you were doing before Web 3, and then like what was your light bulb moment? How did you say, I think I should go do this? So open question there. Emad, go first. Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, it was like, I think like 4 years back, I heard a lot about blockchain. It kind of was like, you know, like a puzzle to me. I really did not understand what actually blockchain is. So there was a lot of news around Bitcoin. There was a lot of news around Ethereum. It kind of like was, I mean, like, I got very inquisitive about it, what it is. So I started researching about it, what blockchain is, how does it work. So as much as I started researching, I got more interested in it in terms of development. So that is how I started. And then I started initially working on Ethereum. So Ethereum network, I started doing the Solidity smart contracts. So that's how I started. Then I started doing some freelancing. So particularly because blockchain is very new right now, it's still emerging. Yeah, there are job opportunities out there, but still it's not that stable, I would say, because it's kind of emerging, but now it's going better, I guess. So there would be a lot of jobs there. So that's how it happened. So it was like a question mark for me, solving that question mark, and that really. So then I did work with other blockchains as well, like Cosmos as well. And I think that's extremely good network. with a back of very good developers. And yeah, that's how it happened.
Devin, how about you? How about what turned the light bulb on for you to say, hey, I should do this?
Well, I was working in ed tech at the time, and part of what we did to implement new courses was look for gaps in, in knowledge in technology and where developers were needed. So when I realized the overall gap between the amount of blockchain developers that were in circulation and the amount of job opportunities, and thought it would help my career there, I didn't know exactly how much I would like fall in love with it and how far it would take me. But I started, diving deeper into research. I'd already been like dabbling in and looking into, because it was becoming a thing, you'd see Bitcoin on the news and somebody lost all his coins or something, and it just, or somebody spent a few $1 million on a pizza or something. And I just kind of, I dove in from there, and really got passionate about it. And this is where I am today.
Cool. Steve, you care to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I got into blockchain. I was already programming. I was working on some like personal financial projects, and I was also working on stuff in geolocation for this company MITRE. And I heard about it on the news during the Silk Road saga, when there was a guy running a marketplace on the Tor-powered internet, the dark web. He was successfully like running this marketplace without having it shut down by the feds, and I wanted to know how it worked. I wanted to know how the transactions actually worked, and he wasn't getting caught. So I heard about this Bitcoin thing. And I got very excited about the politics of Bitcoin. I was very excited about a future where we didn't have, financial overlords and people running our economy without our consent. So I started contributing to different cryptocurrencies at that time. This was kind of an era where like people were launching their own blockchains all the time. So there was an early attempt at a stablecoin called New Shares, which I was really passionate about. NU was the project name. It ultimately did not work out, but it was like kind of the first experiment in this concept of like a stable coin, which was called New Bits, and then, shareholders, which were called New Shares, and then inflating and deflating the value of the stable coin and incentivizing shareholders to facilitate that process with market dynamics. So it was really exciting, and the incentive problems to solve there was really cool. And I was making really small contributions. I was really more kind of a lurker in that project and making like small UI improvements, because I didn't know enough about the actual like cryptography at the time. So I had a very slow ramp up. And then when Ethereum launched, that really lowered the barrier for becoming a blockchain developer. I can't really overstate how big a deal Ethereum was for developer participation in blockchain, because all of a sudden you didn't need to really know the cryptography. It obfuscated all of that away from you, and you can just write smart contracts in a way that feels like regular code. So I was very excited about that. I started out in more of like a teaching role. I was teaching a lot of people how to write Solidity and staying up to date on like what the latest tools are. I was writing dev tooling. I wrote an IDE for Ethereum. Didn't go anywhere, but it was a really fun project for me. And then I eventually tried to found my own project that was doing on-chain DAOs for e-commerce called Bountium. And that's really where I grew into my own as a Web3 developer. That's when I was really challenged to like build the whole app from end to end, build a front end that works with the blockchain and actually works well, that doesn't require somebody to know all this terminology and know all this difficult stuff. So I had a lot of fun with that project, and it's led to sort of every opportunity for me since.
So we're going to transition here, but there's two follow-up questions. I'm looking at all the questions here and trying to group them into some kind of cognizant grouping here. But there's question DAO. We need to define DAO. Somebody needs to know DAO. And then we do have a philosophical question from Lou. Love the question, Lou. Isn't KYC against the spirit of decentralization? So Steve, you did KYC. So you do that one, and then also keep in mind that we have a cryptography expert in Emad. So if you have some specific cryptography questions, the person who knows more about cryptography than anybody I've ever met. So answer the KYC question, and then we'll transition in DAO, and then we'll transition to careers.
Lou, that's an awesome question. And I love that you're like thinking about a decentralized future, because I think that's what everyone in this space should be building for. for me personally, I think we're heading to a future where like at least 40% of the economy is going to be anonymous. It's going to be people participating as rational financial actors without revealing their identity. And so those people will not be KYC'd. And those people are served really well by Lido. But I think that there are significant parts of the economy that require people to disclose their identity. I think that on-chain reputation doesn't work. And I think that there are some things that can't be financialized. I think there are some things where people are going to have to use subjective judgment, and to make those judgment calls in a capitalist world, you need to reveal your identity. So I think that the future we're heading towards is probably one where there's no like hefty middleman's cut. In today's world, you have investment banks like Goldman Sachs that match make people who want to deploy capital into a company and then the company itself, right? And they take like up to a 3% cut, and that's just slowing down economic growth tremendously because they're not really creating a lot of value. I think that their job will be largely replaced by smart contracts that drive that market, and they'll become more advisory, but that still requires KYC. I still think companies will want to know who their shareholders are so they can vet them, they can block, predatory investors, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the future I'm building towards. And I think it's still a decentralized future that runs a lot more efficiently and removes middlemen, which is what I care about. But I could be wrong totally. So, if you believe in this like non-KYC economy, then I encourage you to build it.
I would like to add something there.
Please go.
Okay, so I think KYC is important irrespective of whether it's decentralization or centralization. There are reasons for that, I would say. So one of the reasons I would say accountability. So you don't want to be out there doing anonymous things, and that could be crime, that could be anything illegal, and not be accountable for that. I think that is a big gap there right now, and companies are trying to fill up that, I think, yes. Even the recent, I would say recent white paper by Ethereum, they actually addressed that in terms of soul-bound tokens, if you heard about it. And I think that's quite very serious actually, and KYC in terms of, you have DeFi's giving away the loans and those kind of things. You really need those kind of stuff there. You cannot just, you cannot just say that you want to be anonymous. I don't think that will happen. Governments will let that happen.
Devin, you want to weigh in on this one too? You look ponderous over there in the corner.
No, actually, I'm wondering because I know personally a lot of developers working in the space that are like, I don't want to be doxxed, or I don't want anybody to know who I am. And I think it's kind of funny, right? Because it's like, that's just life. But so that's what the pondering look was, is me pondering over that. But I think know your customer is important, and for the reasons just stated. Yeah, if somebody wants to take out a loan and we want to do it without a huge amount of collateral in the future, because that's going to be a blocker for some people who may very well be able to pay it back. Know your customer is definitely necessary there.
Great. So we're going to transition here now to talk about what is employment, what does jobs look like. There's a nice question here from Luke. I see you there in chat, Luke. And I think this is probably a good Emad question because you're a CTO. His question is, what are the biggest deficiencies you see in newer Web3 developers? What sets apart the top-notch Web3 developers from just your average ones? So what do you think that skill set is when you're going to hire somebody and say, yep, I want to hire this person, and here's why?
What I realized is one of the issues I see in the market is there are so many blockchains coming up. There are so many languages coming up. Actually, the base language is the same. So for example, if you have like a C++ based language, okay? So there are a lot of resource-oriented languages coming up. So there are a lot of companies adopting a particular language that's not very common others. So that is kind of a, deterrent for the market. But I would say that there are different, so you'll have a blockchain. Usually people are looking for full stack developers who can contribute to the front end as well, can do to the back end as well. But I think, so in terms of that, I think, yes, So what I see is that when people are transitioning right now, they don't have still people are learning. Even the companies themselves, they are learning. So definitely that's happening. And also the software platforms, they are quite heavy.
Okay. So there are a couple of questions here that are sort of related. But I wanted to jump in and talk a little bit about the crypto winter. You know, we start to see Bitcoin down by 70%, it's down by 80%, it's up, it's down. I will say that because maybe I'm one of the more senior people in the panel, this isn't new. For people who are around when Web 1 and Web 2 were things, that new technology pops up all the time. There's a lot of excitement because it's new, it's different, and sometimes the technology just needs to go away. Some things are not all that, don't work anymore. So one quick example, there's a company called Redback Switches. And during like the web transition from 1 to 2, this is what their big thing was. Now, this is like mind blowing, right? It's like, I'm gonna send a video. Well, it's really big, how do I do that? All Redback Switches did was they did packet switching, right? They took this much of your video, then they sent it. And then took this much of your video and overlapped and it sent it. And it didn't really do anything until it all assembled on your computer. But it's like mind-blowing technology. It's like, oh my God, I just watched this 35-second video and it only took me 6 minutes to download. Whoa. Well, you know, broadband comes up and it just blows Redback Switches away. I think if you take a look at, especially in the TrueUp.io that we put in the chat here for you, you take a look at their layoff tracker. Don't take a look at that. It's like, oh my God, this whole industry is going to blow up. Go take time to research the kinds of jobs that aren't there anymore. And you will see more often than not it's technology that maybe wasn't all that great and maybe it just needed to go away. It's kind of like an evolution of the fittest. Works well in software development too. So the question we have here is, I'm going to combine a couple of these things here. What's the job market look like from the perspective of all of you who are working there? And then also I'm going to combine two questions. And what do you think the salary differences look like between Web 2 and Web 3? So Steve, you go first. What do you think the job market looks like right now for Web 3? And then what are if you know, what are the differences between Web 2 and Web 3 salaries?
So this is definitely something like I can only speak from anecdata, you know, like what, you know, my friends are hiring for, that kind of thing. But that being said, the pulse that I'm getting is that for a while, there were some big companies that were kind of setting out like blue sky blockchain projects, right? There was literally blue sky from Twitter, now that I say it, but, you know, there were bigger companies like Google will start like a blockchain team and kind of not really have a specific agenda for them. And it seems like those jobs have gone off the market. You know, those companies are tightening their belts a little bit and they're really focused on like what's more proven. And blockchain is usually not in those plans for them. And I think the blockchain companies, bigger blockchain companies, ones that have, you know, gotten to Series B in the fundraising cycle or later, they seem to be maybe slowing down their hiring, pausing their hiring, but still hiring. So it seems like before, you know, a couple quarters ago, they were desperate. They were really looking for people. And now it's like, well, you know, they're really looking for the right person and they're looking for somebody that's maybe in a particular geography, you know, or someone with a particular skill set. They're being a little stricter now. And then pre-Series B, I think it's the same as before. You know, the founders that I know, they're starting a company they've just raised. They're really hungry for talent. And I think that they're not really very price sensitive. These are companies usually like the larger crypto companies. When crypto prices go down, that directly affects their revenues because usually they're getting paid in those tokens that are now worth less. But these earlier companies that are pre-Series B, like oftentimes they don't even have revenue. You know, they're just spending out of money in the bank that is in US dollars that was given to them by a VC. So crypto prices don't really affect them as much. It doesn't affect their hiring plans as much. So if you're having trouble finding something at these larger companies, I'd look way earlier if you can. I'd try to, you know, network your way, meet some founders, and look for companies like that.
Devin, what do you got?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. I do think that, you know, when you brought up crypto winter, that was a lot of companies that were very small at the time are now huge. and it gave them the decline, the economic decline really gave them room to grow. I do think that, as you said, about companies that might be using older technology, they're not growing as fast anymore. And I still think that there is more growth in Web3. And I do think that in general, I do hear from a lot more recruiters than some of my friends who are working at Web2 companies. So that's my take on the market, is that yes, jobs that are startups are, as you said, more hungry and looking for more talent too, because they're not directly impacted by prices or revenue, and they've got money in the bank.
I will also say that good ideas always find cash. If they solve real problems, they'll find more cash.
Mhm.
So there's a technology called Tenderly. I just dropped that in the chat for everybody. And again, full disclosure, Bogdan Habich is a good friend, and Tenderly did write one of our sprints. But Bogdan has like exceptional, if he wasn't my friend, I'd say the same thing. He's got really cool tech, because he allows smart contracts to be monitored on and off chain. And I don't know, a whole lot of people do that, and I don't know if they do it as well as they do. And during, go talk to Bogdan, go find him. He's really cool to talk to everybody. But just understand, their company formed during one of the first crypto winters. During the last crypto winter, just recently, his company got an even higher round of funding, because his technology is fundamentally solid and it really works well. So Luke, I guess we didn't answer your question. So he's rephrasing here. It is, what are the top 3 priorities for becoming the best possible Web3 developer? So that's a rephrase from Luke. Emad, you want to go first on this one?
Okay, so I think one of the things I would say would be learning smart contracts. So also, you don't need to know much of the, yeah, if you are more into front end, then yeah, React can help a lot. React, like TypeScript, JavaScript, they are quite really, most of the companies work with those kind of technologies. So, and they usually, you'll find all of the blockchain, they are looking for at least, those kind of things. So in terms of, I would say in terms of blockchain, the languages that are emerging are Rust, the Golang. There is smart contract languages, resource oriented are coming. So I would say, like, if there's a Flow blockchain, which is an NFT based blockchain, and they have a smart contract language called Cadence, which is a resource oriented. Or there is I would say Facebook introduced a project called, I don't know, Dime, if they call it Dime or Dime, I guess. So yeah, so they had this language called Move. They dropped the project, but now there's a blockchain called Aptos. It's kind of coming in the news right now, and they have like resurrected Move language. So it's like resource oriented. So there's a concept called Move semantics in C++. It's like resources, passing in the addresses kind of thing. And the Move language, actually, it revolves around that concept. And what happens is, it's trying to, like, you're not allowed to copy an asset. So this is for more like assets. So these are the technologies if you are learning, and I think you're gonna go further ahead. But basically the concept is kind of similar with all of them.
So one question here, so is Solidity the best language to start?
Yes.
It's okay. Okay.
So it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
No.
We're going to shift a little bit again here. And again, I'm just trying to cover as many questions as possible by grouping them. So just to help everybody kind of frame up here, this is all NFTs. So let me try to find the best good starter NFT question. Oh, I guess this is a good one. please explain NFT and metaverse to someone who has no idea what the difference is between the two. So who wants to jump on that one?
I can.
You
So
go.
an NFT is a token that you verify ownership on the blockchain. You usually purchase through a transaction from a blockchain. So that's a token that might even provide you access to a metaverse, which is more or less a virtual world where you can interact with the blockchain. Does that cover it?
Yeah, I think that's a good starter. There are some other deeper questions for NFTs. So this one is, how has the recent decline in NFT values affected your work and career? Is your salary tied to the value of what are NFTs that you create?
Personally, it doesn't impact me because my salary isn't tied to the value of the NFTs. And I don't really think because of our connection with brands and sports teams that we've seen a huge decline, but I do have a friend that launched an NFT on Terra, and he lost 200K personally. So that has happened to people. So yeah.
Steve, I want Steve to hold on, Emad. I want Steve to go first because I got a deep question for you, Emad. And so start thinking about ERC governance. I'm going to ask you the governance question coming up. Go ahead, Steve.
I work mostly in DeFi. I'm not very involved in NFT metaverse stuff. So personally, I've not been that affected. I do have to be really aware of, like, there have been DeFi hacks in the news. Lido, another liquid staking protocol, recently lost its peg for about a couple of weeks. It's since recovered. So that sometimes affects my work, but it never, like, I get paid in regular fiat. So, it doesn't affect my salary. But it's relevant to my project, because every DeFi hack that happens informs my work, informs how I should be writing my code, and to make sure I don't get hacked the same way. And, even like things that aren't really hacks, but are just market dynamics, like this DPEG, that's something I need to consider as well. Smart contract engineering and DeFi is half finance and half coding, so you have to learn from the markets and learn from what's happening and build around that.
So Emad, I held you till this part for NFTs. Primarily because I want to push the conversation just a little deeper. We mentioned ERC20 tokens. We mentioned ERC 721. Someone said that. So go ahead and give your answer about what NFTs and value. But then if you would please just kind of step into a little bit about what the governance parts is. In my never to be humble opinion, NFTs are kind of cool. I kind of didn't really understand them. I see Bored Apes Yacht Club. I'm going, wow, that's a waste of $480,000. I said, this is it doesn't really make sense. I talked to Emad, and then he enlightens me about what NFTs could be, especially governance. Emad, go ahead.
Okay, so I recently read a very cool thing about NFT. I mean, that could be a good understanding you can get. So, Pearson company, it's a book company. They what do you call it? Yeah, they are like book suppliers. So Pearson, so what they're doing is, usually what happens is when students buy books and then they finish their semesters and then they sell those books. Now what they are doing is they are publishing the books as NFTs. So what that does is that gives them reselling actually leverage. So what happens is when a student sells, the company is getting the percentage of reselling as well. So that is how the real implementation of NFT is happening with the real world things actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You had more? Go ahead.
No.
Okay. Just for fun, because we're going to do a transition here to a different topic. So I'm going to put into chat no offense to my guest here, because you're my friends. But I want to send this one over to you. This is like my favorite new website, because it does a bunch of things unbelievably well. You can design your own kitties, and then you can sell your kitties, or you can use the DNA of one cat to transfer to the other. I think these people really get to this idea of NFTs and metaverse, because once you can make friends on this crypto kitty site, then you can go on special trips and missions to find special kitties. And I love what they are doing with their NFTs. Stay tuned. The person who invented CryptoKitties has promised me that he's going to do the next panel discussion. And when he's promised to share his roadmap is unbelievably complicated, integrative, but at the same time, it hits all of these kinds of things that Web3 can do. So sorry to my presenters, but I love CryptoKitties. Okay.
Nice advertising.
Hey, they don't pay me for anything. I don't. You know what? As much work as I've done with them, they don't even give me a free kitty. So I have to make my own kitty and pay for it. Okay. So we're gonna transition a little bit here to another topic. This is we have one that came in. What if you have experience freelancing in smart contracts and working with Web3 startups, but are looking to take your experience to the next level beyond front-end integration, Solidity, Chainlink, etc. What's the next cool thing that you should learn? Let's say you're doing really, really well. What's like to say, wow, I should do this because it's cool and it's gonna do well.
In my opinion, I think sort of what took me to the next level was trying to actually like interact with contracts on chain. So if you feel like your freelancing skills are going really, really well and you are shipping dApps for startups, that kind of thing, entering like, a DeFi market, for example, and trying to win will really teach you a lot. What got me into it was trying to do arbitrage between decentralized exchanges, which has since evolved into MEV. But even prior to that, there was a simpler game of like, people were making like sandwich attacks on like where you look at like transactions coming into decentralized exchanges and basically like realize like, oh, this guy's buying at this price, this guy's selling at this price. I can insert my own transaction that, takes the difference between those prices. And that forces you to like read really complex contracts. You have to go look at, the actual Uniswap contract and understand like, how do purchases happen and how do the prices get set? So personally, I think that's what would take you from somebody who like knows Solidity. If you're given some requirements, you can deliver them, to like someone who understands the intricacies of Solidity, because you're going to have read Uniswap, and Uniswap, for example, I remember first learning about like Uniswap's governance and learning about time-locked voting when I was trying to think about ways to like manipulate the Uni token. So that would be something like, that I think you're not really going to bump into if you're just freelancing. Freelancing projects tend to be like simpler in like Solidity. Whereas, once you're really interacting with like live big ecosystems, you're going to like, interact with complex Solidity, people doing crazy things to save gas. So personally, that's what I would recommend is sort of the next step beyond freelancing.